Good morning and welcome back to World Talks, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Stremska. Europe is on high alert following a series of airspace violations. In recent weeks, Russian aircraft have entered the skies over Poland, Estonia and Romania. Most recently, drones of unknown origin breached Danish airspace. Against this backdrop, NATO's military committee, the alliance's highest military authority, is meeting in Latvia this weekend. To discuss the implications, we're joined by Colonel Ray Wojcik, former army attaché at the US Embassy in Warsaw and a defense expert. Good morning, Ray. Delighted to have you with us.
Great to be here again, Sally.
So these military meetings are often shrouded in mystery, and I wanted to start with location. Is it significant that they're meeting in Latvia?
No. These military committee meetings are routine. Obviously, the times make the meeting very important, but the military committee meets 3 times a year, and the third time, which is now in the fall, is usually in another nation. It's probably planned months in advance, maybe a year before the next nation. So the timing is great, though, because there's so much activity by the Russians. I think it's important to be in an eastern flank country and really have the feel for what's going on. And in the nature of the talks, obviously, very important with Russia escalating their aggression against NATO.
Mm-hmm. Right. So military committee is NATO's highest military body and provides military advice to NATO, right? But how important is their advice, and how often does it translate into direct action?
Yeah, well, I think first, for background, of all the committees in NATO, the military committee can only be tasked by the North Atlantic Council. It's the only committee like that. The others can be tasked by other bodies within NATO, but the military committee takes its marching orders from the North Atlantic Council. So you have this civilian senior body directly connected to the military committee, providing their best advice. It works the same way at the military level and the presidential level in the United States. The senior military guys providing this best advice. Also, they're very important to implementation of guidance. So they take what the North Atlantic Council is often saying and translate that into military terms that gets out to each nation so the nations understand what that is. And they're also very, very important in taking key decisions that are NATO-wide. For example, in how NATO's going to do classified sharing and things like this. So they're a very important body. This particular meeting is the one that all the chiefs of defense actually attend, this one in Riga.
Right. Actually, I wanted to zoom in on the participants because we have General Alexis Grynkevich, Admiral Pierre Vandier, among others, and of course, Admiral Giuseppe Cavodragone. So who are these people and why they're so important?
The General Grynkevich, number one, he's the senior Allied commander, and he is the most important uniformed officer at NATO. And in recent years, the role of the senior Allied commander at NATO has taken on new decision authority, in fact, because of what Russia has been doing against Ukraine. For example, the senior Allied commander, General Grynkevich, which interestingly, he has a name that's got Belarusian background. No language connection, I understand, but it's interesting. He has this deep history. But so he's doing a great job in getting out guidance across the whole military complex. And he's seen as a very, very important figure in bridging both the military and political, realms of what NATO is doing. So, and he's also very closely consulting all the time with the Secretary General of NATO. And then, of course, he has another hat, I should add, because he's the American senior commander of what's called European Command. So we have theater commands around the world, and European Command is our theater command controlling all American forces dealing with Europe or in Europe. And so he's got 2 hats. He actually resides mostly in Mons, Belgium, where NATO is, but he has to handle other issues for military forces. The other senior leaders that you're talking about at NATO, the The SAC-T commander is also very important. He's the one in Norfolk, Virginia, and he's the one in charge of training and doctrine for NATO, but also taking a much more active role in getting the lessons from Ukraine. And then the third officer you mentioned?
There was Grinkiewicz, Vandier, and Cavo-Dragone.
Yeah, and the other officer, actually, I apologize, I don't recognize the third officer name, but the three key positions at NATO are the SAC-Ur, Grinkiewicz, the SAC-T commander in Norfolk, Virginia, training doctrine and lessons learned and implementing those lessons learned rapidly for the current battlefield. And then the other very important officer is the deputy commander of, are the two officers that are involved with operations in Europe, and that's JFC North and JFC South. So those are the four key positions. I'm sure they're all present at this conference because there's so much going on.
Okay, so we have military top brass meeting, and just to let me read this out, what the aim of the meeting officially was, right, is the implementation of decisions from the recent summit in The Hague with particular focus on strengthening collective deterrence and defense. So what could this translate into? Well,
I would hope that one of the things that the military committee is looking at very, very hard, because of all these airspace attacks, I would call these not just violations, these are literally attacks when 20 drones are directed towards Poland and potentially 30 other drones were on their way to Poland, shot down by Ukrainian forces. And then we have all these other violations. Estonia, 3 Russian MiGs flying for 12 minutes around Estonia airspace, and then we have airspace violations, Polish oil rig in the Baltic, Danish airspace, Norwegian airspace, and Germany. Flying over a German ship. And so all these things have got to be foremost and probably have scaled up the level of the conversation. So in the past, after the summit, there should have been a lot of emphasis right now on what are we doing with forward defense and air defense, but now it's at a very, very high-pitched, sort of urgent level, this air and missile defense response to what Russia is doing in NATO airspace. So one of the things that should be being discussed is how are we going to move this forward, because we're always in this reactive mode. Since 2014 even, we've done these very small steps to respond to Russia, and we continue to have this posture of, in my view, of being on our back foot, with the Russians always having the advantage of surprise against us, and we're not taking steps that are more directed towards deterrence and punishment against the Russians for doing something. So in the case of what's happening now, you've seen in the last few days, many allies talking about we will shoot down the next Russian aircraft that crosses our border. You saw your foreign minister talk about that at the United Nations. You saw the Czech president talk about this. So many are talking about that. So in order to push this forward, NATO should relook at the idea of putting an air no-fly zone into Western Ukraine. In other words, look at the non-occupied areas of non-contested areas of Ukraine and put a NATO shield that far forward. This would definitely reduce the amount of what Russia is doing actually against allied territory right now. Move the fight another way to say it, towards Russia, not to get in a fight with Russia, but to protect Ukrainian forces and to show that NATO really means business forward. There's a bunch of other things NATO should be doing on the ground. NATO promised in 2022 that we would move brigade-sized forces from Estonia to Bulgaria into what's called the enhanced battle groups. And so far, very, very little has been done on that ground force. The Germans have committed to do something in Lithuania. Every country has a different big country supporting it. The United States is in Poland. Estonia has the UK. But these brigades are not in place. So these ground forces can be rapidly put in place if NATO takes the decision. Air defense is got to be seen at this point as a NATO-wide problem. Russia is not attacking just one or two countries on the eastern flank. They're going deep into NATO territory when we talk about Denmark, Norway. So we need to look at it as a holistic problem, and Western allies really need to step up. They have stepped up at some level, committing to 5% defense spending, but a lot more has to be done.
Mm-hmm. But Denmark has been very careful in naming a culprit for what has unfolded recently. Why so?
This is mysterious, especially when you see the pattern of what has been happening. But you know, even within the United States, there are different voices that will make the same claim. President Trump, thankfully, is taken, at least rhetorically, a new tact on what Russia is doing, and even saying, you know, NATO should be shooting down Russian aircraft. He said in the President Wojcik meeting, you know, we're going to stay there in Poland with our military forces and potentially send more. And he's also said recently, I think Ukraine can win, and we should help Ukraine win. So those are all three great things coming from the White House. But there are even other voices in the U.S. government I've heard that have said something like, well, maybe the Russians made a mistake when they crossed territory by Estonia, for example. So it's a mixed across all NATO allies in this kind of rhetoric, waiting to get the full determination. I don't know why we have to be so uber cautious, though, because it's clear what the Russians are doing.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of Trump, I mean, he did say that Ukraine could win back its territory, but he also said that Europe, right, would be instrumental in helping Ukraine do so. Do you think that he's taking a little bit of a back seat here?
No, he's right. Europe is instrumental in doing this. Europe in, of course, defense posture. Europe, of course, in spending to help Ukraine. Europe in taking the U.S. weapons under this new framework Trump has established to get them to Ukraine. Europe but not do it alone. I don't think Trump is saying Europe has to do this alone. You know, I'm not trying to, you know, parse the words out, but he also...
You don't think he's washing his hands of this?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I just noticed yesterday, this is a very small detailed data point. It could be important. The United States presence in Poznan is a core structure. You know, we have Army battalions, brigade. So this is the core level. We have this core headquarters. And they're hiring. They are putting out the word, we need U.S. experts to fill these positions. So if the president is abandoning NATO or the east flank of NATO, the policy doesn't seem to be going that way. And I would add this, the president has also indicated that Europe has to do much more on decoupling from China, because China is fueling the Russian war machine. And then the Europeans de facto are helping China by buying all this, India and China, by buying all this refined products from India. And then so half the European economy is still fueling Russia's war machine.
And of course, we have a bigger problem with Hungary and Slovakia, right? But that's the topic, right, for another discussion. Ray Wojcik, thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TV World.